All right, folks, today we're going to be doing another tier list. Now, these are super fun to do live because y'all can come in here on the chat and tell me what you think and where you would put these on your list. But today we are not making your list, we are making my list. And we're going to be ranking all these Star Wars projects, specifically film and television Star Wars projects. There's like a million books and comic books and graphic novels and video games that I haven't gotten to all that. I'm only one man with so much free time. So here we have our, if this will tell you immediately kind of where I stand with stuff and, hopefully, make y'all aware that I'm not in a particular camp. I'm putting on my Kathleen Kennedy hat so that we can get this tier list put together. Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but today we're going to be talking about my opinion. So here we have our tier list. Now, if you've never done a tier list before, S is the top. It is S tier, supreme tier. And then A, B, and C, all the good standards. D is kind of the lowest we go. We could make an F tier, but F tier is just a little bit too mean in my opinion. It is hard. It is hard to make media. It is hard to make a movie. It is hard to make a TV show. It's hard to make an animated show. There's a bunch of animated shows on here as well. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of people, a lot of man hours to put together, and I have a little bit too much respect for folks to just throw them down in the F tier. But we have here all the Star Wars projects that have come out over the years. And we're just going to be going through and seeing where they land. And of course, why not get maybe one of the toughest ones out of the way first, which is the Acolyte. Look, I have been very vocal in my opinion before. I think the Acolyte really tried. Acolyte was akin to like a CW show, but like the good CW shows, like season 1 through 3 of Arrow, season 1 through 5, Supernatural. I think the Acolyte, for me, to be honest, high C tier. I think it deserves a second season. It deserves time to mature. It deserves time to unravel, since it was a story that was a little bit of a slow burn. It deserves a second shot. The actors were fantastic. The fight choreography was insane. The fact that we had like wushu inspired lightsaber combat was super cool to see on screen. They had some great ideas. The clips come up on my Twitter constantly and I go, damn, you know what? That was pretty cool. But overall as a show, it just didn't quite get there. And I mean, especially when you line it up against all this stuff. I think for me, it's probably a mid to high C. I see some D tiers in chat. One S tier. I'm going to hold you to that. Quick, what's the name of the lead character? The lead character of the Acolyte. You have 20 seconds and you're getting timed out. Mrs. Acolyte. All right, and we're going to go ahead and VIP you. All right, so that's the Acolyte out of the way. For all the haters who are already typing in the comments, look, I got it out of the way first, so you kind of generally understand where I stand. If that pisses you off, I'm literally allergic to your bullshit. If you see that I didn't leave an F tier and throw Acolyte on there or put Acolyte in D tier, that might tell you all you need to know. Next up, we have The Phantom Menace. Now, this is a movie that I don't know if I'm alone in this experience with The Phantom Menace. I have gone through waves of loving and hating this movie. there was a time when I was really young, because I kind of grew up on this trilogy, that I really loved Phantom Menace. Obviously, like, Darth Maul is super cool. As a kid, Jar Jar is really funny. Then I had kind of like my teenage years where I was like, this movie kind of sucks, this movie's kind of boring, blah, blah, blah. Then, like, years later, coming back to it with the lens of understanding what George Lucas was trying to set up with Phantom Menace, I have, like, a weird respect for it. But I don't know that ultimately it's, like, some of the best Star Wars. So I think, for me, it's a solid B. And I think that's fair. High B tier. Yeah, I think I agree with chat there. High B tier for Phantom Menace. It does a lot of really important heavy lifting, but ultimately, the shortcomings of it are kind of tough to get through. Look, Darth Maul lightsaber sequence, A tier. If we were doing a ranking of just lightsaber battles, I think easily A tier. All right, next up, and if y'all hadn't noticed yet, these are all in chronological order, not release order. Next up, we have Attack of the Clones. Now, I can picture myself as a child watching Attack of the Clones. I watched this movie in Venezuela. Me and my neighbor went to see this movie in the movie theaters when we were kids, when it came out. We were running around because we were in a Spanish-speaking country and the movie wasn't out in Spanish yet. It was in English with closed captions. And there was so much reading and not enough action until like the last 30 minutes of the film. So my first impression of this movie was that it's boring. Growing up and rewatching it again, time and time again over the years, I think it's still mostly boring. I think it does some incredible heavy lifting for the entirety of the franchise, but as a film in and of itself, I probably put it C tier. I think I put it above the Acolyte, but I think I put it C tier. I think it is probably, the worst of the prequels. I agree. Now, jumping away from the movies for a little bit, we have the Clone Wars, and I have the Clone Wars separated into two pieces here because I think they're very distinct. We have the original Clone Wars, and then we have Clone Wars the final season. And I think they are very different from one another because there's a huge shift in tone, huge shift in effectiveness of storytelling, animation quality, so much of that. In either case, Clone Wars, the original series, I'm putting high B tier. I think I don't go higher than B tier because rewatching that show, as much as I love it, and I even love the filler stuff, I think there is more that is less good than there is that is very good. I think it's because the first few seasons of Clone Wars, they were trying really hard to figure out what they were. But the Clone Wars, the final season, high A tier. I would put it S tier, except for that Coruscant arc with Ahsoka was a little bit meh, but incredible. The Siege of Mandalore, fantastic. The Order 66 sequence, fantastic. I got jaw surgery a few years ago, around the time that this had kind of wrapped up, and somebody made like a 4.5 hour fan edit of Revenge of the Sith that incorporated the Siege of Mandalore and Ahsoka's arc into it, like kind of chronologically. And while I was recovering from surgery, I watched that, and it was such an incredible experience. Shoot, I might be talking myself into putting this in S tier. You know what? I think I just talked myself into putting it in S tier. I think given that how much it does to further and put an incredible bow on the story of the Clone Wars and ultimately like put a pin in what the Clone Wars was in reference to the building of the Empire, in reference to Anakin's story, into the fall of the Jedi. It does such an incredible job at all of that. Not to mention the technical components of like how much this furthered animation for Star Wars. Yeah, I think it's S tier. I think it's totally S tier. I think I would be undercutting it just because there's a little bit of a story arc that I didn't love. I think ultimately it all contributed to the world building that really makes Clone Wars some of the best stuff that's come out of Star Wars. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say S tier. I talked myself into it. Revenge of the Sith, I also remember watching in theaters. And I remember going to a midnight screening for Revenge of the Sith in theaters. And that experience was crazy. And I remember sitting with my mom and being like, wow, this is the last time we'll be able to go to a midnight screening for a Star Wars movie. How incredible is that? I think Revenge of the Sith is probably I really want to say A tier. My nostalgia really wants me to say A tier. But there's so much slow in that movie that's just like really held up by a really challenging performance from Hayden Christensen. So much weight is put on him in this movie, and I do not blame him. I think he's a decent actor. I think he wasn't getting the direction he needed to get where he needed to get. So I think I might put it top of B tier. And I think I'm happy with that. I think it could go A tier if I was being generous with it for the opening 30 minutes, the closing 30 minutes. But there's so much slow that happens in there that I think puts it at the top of B tier for me. I would put it A tier if they had stuck to the original plan and had Jar Jar Binks be a much bigger part as to the fall of the Empire. But hey, you know, they still gave him the opportunity to be the senator that introduces the Emergency Powers Act, which is crazy. Not even Darth Jar Jar, bro. Like, real Jar Jar is straight up the reason the Empire falls apart. And I think the original premise for Jar Jar's character was that would be a much more involved process. We'll never know for sure. But George Lucas has admitted that the reception to Jar Jar did significantly reduce his involvement in the rest of the series. And I think that's felt. Next up is the newest from Star Wars, aside from Andor, of course, which is currently airing. Tales of the Underworld. And chat, I'm going to tell you, if you haven't been watching the Tales of Star Wars stories on Disney Plus, you are actually missing out. They are shorts. They are shorts done in the same exact animation style as the Clone Wars. They are 15-minute episodes, and it's usually about 3 episodes to an arc. So like 45-minute stories. And there's like 6 episodes per like show. So they're really, really good. And they tell these like quick, concise stories that do a lot to like develop the world. So Tales of the Underworld is the newest one, and my animation lovers out there, it is incredible. It is shocking how good the animation is. The lighting in Tales of the Underworld is insane. There's some shots that are like, they look so real and so artistically, like so well crafted, like real cinema level cinematography. And then like you cut to a close up of their face and it's like, woo, goofy cartoon alien. But, like, but it's still really good. Tales of the Underworld, 2 arcs, one on Asajj Ventress and one on Cad Bane on his origin. I found them both extremely interesting, and I thought they did some really good work to further those characters and let us know kind of where they were / where they are. And for that, I'm going to say low B for me. I think the animation quality was incredible. The stories were unique and interesting, and they did some good legwork for getting me excited to see more of Asajj Ventress, getting me excited to like rewatch some stuff with Cad Bane in it. Really interesting stuff. But it didn't blow me away, so I think low B tier. If y'all haven't watched it, seriously, it's like an hour and a half to get through this entire thing. Go watch it. It's so fun. Next up, we have The Bad Batch, and I'm going to tell y'all right now, I'm putting The Bad Batch in my question mark column because I watched, I think, 5-6 episodes, and I thought it was really interesting, but then I just never came back to it, and I believe there's like 3 entire seasons, but I haven't seen it yet. Okay, guys, I'm conflicted on this next one. Next one is Kenobi. I think it is incredible that we got Ewan McGregor to come back to play Obi-Wan Kenobi. I thought it was amazing getting to see Hayden Christensen come back and play Darth Vader, and to see them have like an incredible confrontation to the level that the original trilogy could have never done, with the full weight that these 2 actors could have been bringing this whole time to the prequel trilogy. I thought it was a beautiful love letter to the prequels. I thought, as somebody who grew up watching the prequels, it was really incredible to see. I just wish it was better. It honestly, if it was a movie, it probably would have worked so much better. But the pacing is so incredibly weird. The budget really comes through in some times. Like, there's some sequences that are incredible. And there's some sequences that really just feel slapped together. The story feels dragged out. Some of the choices, you know, I loved getting to see Baby Leia. That was kind of fun. But some of the stories with the Inquisitors just didn't really connect with me all the way. I thought it was perfectly acted. I thought that they really had good intention. I just wish it was better. Cut that script down into a movie and give them like 6 more months to work on it. It could have been so much better. Now, this one, I'm not really sure where the general consensus falls on this film, but Solo: A Star Wars Story, I actually really like. I really enjoy Solo. I don't know that I enjoy it enough to put it in A tier. I think I like it more than episode 1. I don't know that it stacks up against Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, but I really liked Solo: A Star Wars Story. I don't know if that is a popular opinion or a hot take, but I thought it was great. I thought Alden Ehrenreich was an incredible Han Solo. I think Childish Gambino was a really good Lando. Donald Glover, of course. And like they set up something really cool with like the crime syndicates and Darth Maul and everything like that. Obviously, there's a lot of behind the scenes drama. Chris Lord and Phil Miller were the original directors from the Lego movie and Spider-Verse and everything like that. They got fired, and then Ron Howard came on to finish it. But I thought it was an extremely charming movie. I thought the action sequences were really cool. And I don't know, the production design was really good. It was very well technically made. I really enjoyed it. All right, guys. I really hope this isn't a hot take by any means. In fact, it is the only take that I think should be fully and wholly everyone's opinion. And if you disagree with me, I don't think you understand Star Wars. I'm going to say that. Please don't fight me. Andor is S tier. Tippity top of S tier. Andor is some of the best Star Wars content that's been coming out. Season 2 in particular. The second to last arc, which is the latest one at the time of making this list, is some of the best Star Wars, period. This show is absolutely incredible. It is surprisingly relevant. It is so thoughtfully put together and executed. I wish they would have taken their time and maybe made it 3 seasons instead of 2. That's the only knock I'll give it. But Andor is some of the best to come out of Star Wars. It's some of the best television on right now, period. Also, Latinos in space. Need I say more? Need I say more? Look, I literally throughout this list, I've been talking about the prequel trilogy, growing up in Venezuela, watching it, going like, wow, isn't this so amazing? Never would have I pictured that what I'm sitting here, decades later saying is the best Star Wars to ever come out would have a Latino lead, 2 Latino leads. Incredible. And from Andor, we go to Tales of the Empire. Hey, remember everything I was saying about how cool Tales of the Underworld was and how you need to watch it if you haven't watched it? I haven't watched Tales of the Empire. But I will. Okay, this one is divisive amongst fans. And I think given that Andor has really been radicalizing me in so many ways, Rogue One, which I owe a rewatch. I owe Rogue One a rewatch, especially after Andor. I always really liked Rogue One. And I know that Rogue One had a lot of behind the scenes drama that went on as far as how it got made and who had the final edit and everything like that. I think Rogue One is A tier. I think it's an incredibly well-crafted story. I think the characters are really interesting. I think it really introduced an entire new lens to look at Star Wars and look at the whole universe outside of just the Skywalkers. And it's also just like really well executed. Like the effects are really strong. It felt very tactile, very tangible. Especially coming off of like, the prequels where everything was so digital and it felt so fake. I really liked it. I wish we would have gotten more Star Wars stories to explore, but I guess, in a sense we have. Now, here we are at the original trilogy, what kicked us all off. Look, I think that Star Wars A New Hope, Episode 4, might be the perfect film. It is Joseph Campbell's hero story. It is the creation of a deep lore-filled universe without, hamming it up and hitting you over the head with it. The characters are incredible. The story is so interesting and has twists and turns and makes you believe. It is one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. And that's why it's S tier. And I think I do put it above Andor. I love Andor so much. I think Andor is incredible, but New Hope is like generationally incredible. And I'm going to look past some of my recency bias on Andor and say that A New Hope goes above it. Now comes Empire Strikes Back, which everything I just said about A New Hope being a perfect film, Empire Strikes Back completely comes in and blows past all expectation. And it takes the hero's journey, and it takes all the archetypes, and it takes all of those expectations you have, and it gives us a movie where your hero trio is separated and beaten down, and there's betrayals and hurt, and the biggest betrayal and the biggest cinematic reveal of all time, Luke, I am your father. All of that for them to lose in the end? Come on. Without a doubt. Generational. Perfection in storytelling, 100%. As a standalone too, I think Empire Strikes Back comes from a time period where you didn't know that you were going to get the next one. And so you really had to make a concise story. Now, granted, it was Star Wars. We knew we were going to get a next one. But you could watch Empire Strikes Back as a standalone movie without having seen New Hope, without ever coming back to see Return of the Jedi, and you have a complete, well-rounded film. And that's awesome. So many other movies on this list don't have that same benefit. Now, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is like, if I take off my analytical hat and I just put on my I'm a kiddo watching Star Wars hat, Return of the Jedi is my favorite. I love Return of the Jedi. I've seen that movie so many times. It is objectively not as good of a film. And I think I put it A. I think I put it under Rogue One, above Revenge of the Sith. I still think it's a great movie, and A tier is nothing to scoff at. It is just objectively not nearly as good of a film as the others. I'm saying this with it still being my favorite, but I can be objective and put it in A tier. The Mandalorian is responsible for everything that is great and everything that is maybe not so great about modern Star Wars. And I say that with all the love in my heart. It is responsible for giving us Pedro Pascal at a superstardom level. It is responsible for Baby Yoda Grogu. It is responsible for Disney Plus being a success. And it really brought a lot of people back into Star Wars. However, I am judging it on a whole. And I love season 1 of The Mandalorian. And season 2 of The Mandalorian was pretty good. Season 3 of The Mandalorian kind of lost the plot a little bit. So for that, I still think it's an incredible show with incredibly interesting characters that does a lot to better the franchise overall. I probably put it low A tier. Culturally S tier, yes. But objectively, I think it's A tier. And I think that's fair. I would love to put it S tier. And I respect what they did for season 3. And I thought it was really cool to have the payoff of Mandalore as a fan. But it was hard. It's hard to give it. I can't put it. Man, after everything I just did, I can't put it above Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing that I think is a disservice to The Mandalorian and hurts its overall rating is the fact that they had to hijack an entire episode and a half of this other show in order to set up a speedy season 3 that kind of kicks season 2 in the butt. And of course, I'm talking about the Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett had a lot of interesting ideas that I think did not execute on very well. Unfortunately, the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett is an episode of The Mandalorian. And I think that all in all, Boba Fett is extremely forgettable. Book of Boba Fett might be D tier. I was sitting here getting ready to put it at the bottom of C tier, but I think what's fair is putting it at D tier. Had they not worried so much about filling in the gaps for The Mandalorian and just let this be its own thing, it could have been much better. And I think had they not taken the time to fill in the gaps of Mandalorian in this show and just let that naturally play out in a season 3, it would have helped The Mandalorian be a lot better. But no, Boba Fett is a D tier, which is a shame because Tamora, I think is his name, Tamora Morrison. I might be fully butchering his name, but the actor who played Jango Fett came back to play Boba Fett, which was awesome. And I love Ming-Na Wen and, you know, Robert Rodriguez and a lot of the filmmakers and actors behind this show deserve much better than what they ultimately got. Ahsoka! Look, y'all. I'm just gonna get it over with. I think Ahsoka Tano is one of the most interesting characters in all of Star Wars. I think they are setting up some really cool stuff. I think season 2 has potential to be incredible. But the show itself is high C tier, maybe. I think season 2 has potential. I think season 2 has a lot of potential. But it's not the best Star Wars out there. Everything that Ahsoka sets up is only benefited by the fact that it is essentially a follow-up season 2 Rebels. Which means everything that's good about Ahsoka is everything that's good about Rebels. So this might be a bit of an upset for some folks, but I think Star Wars Rebels is it's definitely better than the Clone Wars. It's definitely better than Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, I think I put Star Wars Rebel at the bottom of my A tier list. I think this is a show that very quickly realized the story it was trying to tell and the goal that it had for the greater franchise, and it just sent it, and it did such an incredible job with it. The core crew, the ghost crew of the Rebels, are so lovable. They're so distinct. Every single one of them has incredible character traits. The world building of the Rebel Alliance in, let's be honest, a more family-friendly way that maybe Andor compared to Andor. But the small cameos that you get from all the different characters and important figures, and ultimately all the expanding that it does about the Force and, you know, the Jedi and what it means to be a Jedi in this time period is so interesting. It's great. And I think Rebels kind of gives up on being a kid show halfway through it, which is great. Also, the Darth Vader Ahsoka fight reunion. The fact that the last thing that Anakin says to Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, which is revenge is not the Jedi way, and what he says to her when they meet again and he's Darth Vader and he says revenge is not the Jedi way, and she goes, I'm no Jedi. So good. So good. Also, Kanan, need I say more? Chat, y'all know what happens. Rebels is great. If you haven't seen Rebels yet, you're actually missing out. Moving on, Tales of the Jedi, I think is fine. Actually, I probably put it below episode 2. Do I like it more than the Acolyte? Yeah, I think so. Tales of the Jedi is fine. It's kind of interesting, some of the things they set up. But it didn't really blow me away. I don't really think about it too much more after it ended. So C tier. I think it's fair. Star Wars Resistance, I hear is really bad, but I actually haven't seen it. So question mark. And now, folks, here we come to what will likely be the most contentious part of the list. And let me be clear. You are completely valid in your opinion. Film and art is subjective. If you enjoy something, if you don't enjoy something, that is okay. This is my interpretation of this art. This is my interpretation of how it made me feel and how well executed I believe it was. Can we get that out of the way? Star Wars The Force Awakens. I remember the way my heart sank when I sat down in the movie theater and John Williams' score came on. I talked about it earlier. I remember looking at my mom at the midnight screening of Revenge of the Sith going, I can't believe we're never going to see another Star Wars movie in theaters. And then years later, going back to see another Star Wars movie in theaters. Look, the movie's not without its faults. Does it retread a lot of the same steps that the original trilogy did? Yes. Does it kind of do a lot of mystery box setups that J.J. Abrams loves to do and kind of make you have to come back in order to get the answers? Yes. How does it fare as a film in and of itself? I think decently. I think probably about as well as Revenge of the Sith. I think that Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac are incredible leads. I think that Kylo Ren is a very interesting villain. And I think they set up some good stuff with it. And I think that you could feel the love that went into making this film. But I think it's a B. I don't think it blew me away. I understand that some people really don't like The Last Jedi because it took a big swing. And for some folks, it felt like a swing and a miss. The way that it handled Luke's storytelling, the things it was trying to set up with Rey and Kylo, some of the world building, all of the tension with Holdo and Leia. I understand some people saw that and went, what is this? This isn't Star Wars. This isn't what I was here for. That being said, in my experience, I think The Last Jedi really took some interesting looks at the complexities of what is a First Order, what is a Resistance, and what is war as it affects everything. I think The Last Jedi took some interesting perspectives at Luke and as someone who is slated to be the chosen one and the weight that that bears on them and how that materializes in a single regretful action that turns into a self-sabotage spiral. And I think what it does to bring Rey and Kylo together to say we are just people who are lost and are seeking power and are seeking answers is also interesting. Plus, that final sequence on the planet with the sand and they're all shooting at Luke and he's not even there is so fucking cool. Last Jedi, A-tier movie. This is me saying, if you don't like it, I get it. And you are totally valid. I really like it. And I think it tried to do something different. And I think it did do something different. The twist with Snoke, the twist with Luke, so many things were so fun that it just said, let the past die and move on and make something new. And I thought that was really cool. And I don't care what you think. I really enjoyed it. I still go back to this movie and really have an incredible time with it. Now, for those of you in chat who are saying F tier, triple F tier, I want to know why. What is it about this movie that you didn't like? Was it some of the things that I was saying? Did I correctly clock what you don't love about this movie? Or is there something that maybe I'm not giving enough credit? Well, look, if you have some ideas as to why you think Last Jedi is not a good Star Wars film, I would love to hear them. When this comes out as a YouTube video, go type in my comments, but also be nice and I love you and mwah. And last but not least, we have Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. I'm not a hater of this movie. In fact, I enjoyed it when I saw it in theaters. I watched it twice. It's the first time I liked it, and then the second time I was like, let me give this another try. And ultimately, because of how much I enjoyed The Last Jedi, and even how much I thought Force Awakens executed well, I can objectively say, even as a sequel trilogy lover and a lover of those characters, I think Rise of Skywalker is probably D tier. I think it does a lot of disservice to the characters and a lot of disservice to the work that went in to setting up something really interesting, only to go back and complicate things for the sake of convenience. I think it's convenient for Rose to not be in the movie. I think it's convenient for Finn to not be able to get out what he's trying to say the whole film. I think it's convenient to have Han show up as a Force ghost. It's convenient for Kylo Ren to die and not have to face the consequences of the terrible actions that he's taken, even though he has his turn to good. It's convenient for Rey to be a Palpatine and actually be somebody. It's too convenient. It's very much, actually, Jampy, you nailed it right there. It is lazy storytelling in the exact opposite way of what Episode 5 did. Episode 5 really knocked it out of the park in getting all your expectations and reversing them and surprising you with it, but actually having it all have impact and weight. Whereas Rise of Skywalker, it really just felt like it was convenient. And that's why they did it. No, I disagree for Last Jedi. Because I think Last Jedi turned the format on its head in a much more interesting way. There are things I like about Rise of Skywalker. You can see the ghost in the background on that really cool fight sequence. I really like Rey, and I like where they left her. I don't mind her taking on the Skywalker mantle. In fact, when this movie was coming out and we were all still speculating on what it meant, I thought that like Skywalker was going to like replace what a Jedi was, and that they were going to say like, there's no light side and there's no dark side. There's no Jedi and Sith. There are only Skywalkers. There are those who can feel the Force and use it. Because like Last Jedi was kind of hinting at that, like, you know, maybe Kylo wanted to go closer to the light side and maybe Rey was like bi-curious with the dark side. And I thought that the answer to that would be like, hey, the Force is balance, meaning that what is good is also evil and it can exist together. And I thought that would have been much more interesting than ultimately what happened, which is that somehow Palpatine returned. But folks, there it is. There's my tier list. In the S tier, we have Empire Strikes Back, New Hope, Andor, and Clone Wars final season. I think that's an incredible S tier. I don't think anyone argues with that, right? We're all in agreement with this S tier. This is pretty solid. I like my A tier. I feel good about it. I know people are going to complain about Last Jedi. I know some people might even complain about Mandalorian. Some people might say Mandalorian season 3 knocked it down to B, which I think would be fair. We need a P tier for Pedro. B tier I think is solid. I think I have a solid B tier. I don't think folks would fight me too hard on this. I think some people really maybe would get contentious about the order. And maybe Clone Wars. C tier, I think we can all agree. Some folks out there might get grumpy and be like, no, Acolyte is garbage. It should be F tier, which like they need to get over themselves. And then I think my D tier is extremely valid. Well, folks, if you want to make your own tier list, and I already saw some people in chat asking for the link, if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be on the description. If you're watching this live, you're going to have to wait for the YouTube video. So make sure you hop on over to Jupigorg on YouTube and subscribe so you can be notified when that video goes up. If you want to know the next time I'm going live, I always post when I'm going live over on my Instagram at Jupigorg, or you can follow me on TikTok if you miss our streams, and if you miss parts of our stream and want to get caught up on some clips, I always post clips on TikTok as well. Folks, thank you so much for hanging out. This is always so much fun. I really do love hearing all your opinions, and at the end of the day, art is subjective, and the fact that we are sitting here and we all feel such passion and emotion about like how good other people perceive art that we engage with to be, like, that's meaningful. Really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with me and watching this tier list. If you want to watch me make a post-Endgame Marvel tier list, that video is live on my YouTube channel. Otherwise, plenty of other content for you to enjoy, looking at movie, film, entertainment news, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you follow me over on Twitch. We are live every Mondays for Movie News Mondays. And that's it for me tonight. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.